And we are live. So welcome back to the Get Your Shit Together live show. And today I have one of my favorite people. And I think I say that every week, but no, legit one of my favorite people on today, who actually, fun fact, was the first person that ever interviewed me for a podcast. And so roles have reversed today, and I am interviewing the famous Hishem Azzouz. How you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. You got a nice little fancy start to this. I like it. I just sort of go into it when I do it. It's cool.
I try to give it a go. I'm trying to be professional, like everyone that sees this setup, they're like, oh, look, you look really professional. I'm like, yeah, like you don't know what's happening behind the screen, but yeah, like I'm trying to give it a go, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you giving up some time because I know you're a busy man.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
Have you been interviewed on a podcast before?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, you have.
Honestly, I just don't really like talking about myself. So I have to really bring myself to be up for it.
Right. But the weirdest thing is you have the most interesting story. Like, honestly, I have been following your career since you were working in HOXO. That's when we met. You were working in HOXO. Yeah. You were doing the Recruitment Rollercoaster podcast. And since then, you've had like 2 other careers. Like, you've got another one going right now. So I think, and that was in what, that was literally 2 years ago, I think nearly to the day that we met. So I think what you've done is super fascinating, especially because in the last 12 months, what you've been able to grow and develop and literally just build from just an idea that you had at the beginning of last year, I think is really insane. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, because honestly, if I find it fascinating, surely other people are going to find it fascinating.
Okay, well, let's get into it then.
Let's get into it. So first things first, most of the people I speak to, they're like, I fell into recruitment, and that's how my journey started. Now they're doing something different. So you did start in recruitment, right?
Yeah, so I was one of those weird people that wanted to get into the industry. I got into recruitment in 2016. A small business outside of London. I'm originally from Eastbourne, so it was a small business in Haywards Heath. And how I got into recruitment was I was in insurance before that, and I did quite well there. I was one of the sort of top sales people, and someone that I became friends with there then left to go into recruitment. We stayed in touch, and then he just sold me the recruitment dream, basically, and loads of money, FIFA, all that. And then I was like, cool, I'm sold. I want to get, by that point, I was like, I want to do sales. Like, that's because I didn't really know what I wanted to do at all, really, until I got into sales. Before that, I was just doing all sorts. I did delivery driver at Domino's for a good little stint, worked in retail, all that. And then when I got into sales, I was like, I was really committed to getting good at sales. So when my friend told me about recruitment, I was quite excited with the prospect of just building on my sales skills. I was in a really transactional insurance recruitment sales role where if I got you on the phone, you would have to buy car insurance from me on that call. Otherwise, we're just not going to do business together. So it's just super transactional.
Yeah, I hear you. So that's really interesting because most people fall into sales as well, but you were like, I'm going to work in sales. Like, this is what I want.
I fell into sales. So the story with the sales thing is, when I had no idea what I wanted to do, I thought it'd be a great idea to do a season abroad. I'll call it Mallorca, but you'll know what that means, basically. And basically, I went there on my own, and I obviously had to try and get a job. And the job I ended up getting was selling tickets. I wasn't one of those annoying PR people, but I was someone that sold tickets to people for a bar crawl. And basically, I would not make money if I didn't sell tickets. It's 25 euros. You had to pay me 10 euros. That confirmed your spot. And then you pay 15 euros on the night. And that was the job that I got. And I'd never done sales before. I was quite a confident person. I was happy to speak to people. But when I started that's when it all began, really, because it started at the beginning of the season where I absolutely shat my pants, basically, to speak to anyone. I had to stop people in the street, walk up people while they're sunbathing, go into hotels, do all that. And then I just got more confident. I just did way more repetitions and got better at it. And then that's when I knew I wanted to do sales after that.
You had a really good, just jump into the deep end and sink or swim of attitude in sales.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, if we didn't, obviously I had a bit of money, but not loads. But yeah, I would, if I didn't make any sales, I would make no money. Like, it's just simple as that. So yeah,
Do you know what?
it
That's
was
actually
interesting.
like,
I enjoyed it.
it isn't it. It is a really interesting job. I actually started my sales career as a daughter of a salesperson, and that is intense.
Mm.
Like, if you don't sell, you don't make money. Like that. That was how it
Yeah.
worked.
The good thing is that if you like get the sale, like there's no like sign a proposal or come back in a week. It's like, here's my 10 euros. That's the good thing about it. Because you're like,
That's true.
right, fucking nailed that, on to the next one.
Now I can have some lunch. High five me. Like, I can go get something to eat and drink now. Awesome. No, that's really cool. And then you decided like sales was, so after that, that was when you're like,
yeah,
sales is a great career. Like, let's just jump into it and let's
I was like, let's do
skills.
sales. Yeah.
Here's a question. So why did you decide to go into recruitment and go, that's going to develop my sales skills more?
Because from what I understood about it, it was a lot more consultative. I was doing deals worth anywhere between like £800 to £4,000, because I basically, we sold insurance to convicted drivers. So people who had driving offences. Obviously their premiums is a lot more higher. So drink drivers, people that drove out insurance, convicted drivers, that was the insurance that we sold. So the deal value was always in between like 800 to like £4,000. But it was super transactional, like really transactional. Yeah. So when I found out about recruitment, it was a lot more consultative. It was a bigger deal value. It was a longer sales cycle, and they were all things that I hadn't got experience with at the time. So it made sense to me.
Yeah, so you got sold the dream I think we've all been sold the dream. Like, I got sold the dream when I was in Australia, where it's just like, you're going to earn like 100K a year. You're going to like have so much money. You're going to be able to buy fancy cars and go on crazy holidays, and like top earners get to go to these crazy holidays. And you're like, oh, amazing. That sounds fantastic. I definitely want to earn that amount, but it's a dream, which you do have to work really hard at. So how did your dream go, my friend?
First year was horrible. It was really tough. It was because I went from like being in like the top 3 salespeople to like bottom of the pack. And there was nowhere to hide. It was a business of 8 people, sat directly next to the owner of the company. So at times it was really daunting. I had to really get out of my comfort zone. I was all of a sudden doing face-to-face meetings. Like, there was just so many areas that I had to improve. I was a bit rough around the edges. Like, there's just so much more for me to improve on. So the first year was really challenging. It was just, I didn't expect how much sort of rejection I would experience, how much pushback you would get, how hard it was before you really start reaping the rewards of your hard work. So it was difficult, but looking back, I enjoyed it for sure.
Yeah, to be fair, I will say recruitment is a really challenging role, because you do get rejections a lot. You're coming into an industry, whether it's argument, like you could argue this, but it is a pretty like tough industry, because recruitment does have a bad name. For various reasons, and so it is challenging. So when you're calling up companies like, hey, I'm a recruiter, like, work with me, and then you're talking to candidates, they've got a bad taste in their mouth, and then clients have a bad taste in their mouth. It's really challenging, and then to be able to overcome that is just a challenge in itself. So recruitment is, I will actually say, I've had a lot of sales roles myself, and when I was in recruitment, it was one of the most challenging sales roles that I had, and I run my own business now, so it's just a challenge. For sure. All right, so the first year was really challenging, and then what happened?
And then I just started to build confidence. It just started to click. I started to build networks. I started to build relationships. I built confidence, and I just really enjoyed it, if I'm honest. Like, when you start building that confidence, everything just seems a bit more easier. So I was just getting better results. I was having more confidence. I was enjoying it. I went from like being the new person in the business to being like someone that everyone had a relationship with, and sort of just, it's also just a nice feeling when you like cement your position in a company as well. Do you know what I mean? You're no longer like the new person, and you're someone that, people trust and speak highly of. So like things just started to, just really, the domino effect, really, it just all started to go in the right direction. There were still challenges, but it was a lot more easier after that first year.
Oh, for sure. Because you actually get it at the end of the day. Like you said, things just start to click. But that first year, it's like, you've got to learn really quickly. Like, you're going to have so much rejection. You're going to be struggling. It is a challenge in the first year of recruitment. So when did you start Recruitment Rollercoaster? Because honestly, that was the first podcast. That was a podcast that you interviewed me on. So when did you start that?
So I started that when I was in recruitment. So so after that first year, which was a roller coaster, it was just a bit of a gut instinct, really. I thought, like, why don't I, if it wouldn't it be great if I could share content online that could paint a real picture of working in recruitment?
Yeah.
So in 2017, I started the Recruitment Rollercoaster blog, and I would do that on the weekends. I would sort of just share, I would just do blog posts around like what I've learned, these types of things, how it's going. And then obviously working in recruitment, you're quite time poor. So I thought, how can I get content for this blog without me doing all the work? And the easiest way to do that is to do guest blog posts. So what I would then do is connect with recruiters and send them a series of questions to answer. And then that would be a blog post, which would be make the Recruitment Rollercoaster. So that's actually how I met Sean. He was one of the early people that did a blog post on there.
Okay.
And then I did that for like a year. And then 2018, I commuted an hour to work. That was the time that I'd always listen to podcasts. I was big into my self-development. And one day I thought, why don't I try and listen to a recruitment podcast? Wasn't really much out there. So I thought, well, I've got this blog. People give me their time. Why don't I see if they'd be open to doing a podcast? And 2018, I started the Recruitment Rollercoaster podcast when I was in recruitment.
That's insane. So you went from, I actually didn't know about the blog post stuff. Like I actually had no idea you started off like doing like blog posts and just being like, let's get that out and knock it out.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. So you would just go up to recruiters going, hey, here's a series of questions, answer them, write what you think, and then send it back, and then you would put it up just to help people understand.
I would just say, hey, I've got this blog. This is what I'm trying to do with it. And most people would be open to contributing and sharing insights because it was relatable. No, we've all been there where no one really actually, that's part of the problem, I think, with the recruitment piece is it's not always painted in the true right way. So
I was actually going to ask that because I was going to ask was actually the reason before that was because you do get sold a dream. Like if you've never worked in recruitment, so for anyone's listening, pop in a comment or pop in a question if you have been sold the recruitment dream and when you got into it was just like, actually, hang on a second, this isn't how it is. Like to be a top biller and to be earning the amount of money that they promised you, it's like the on target earnings, right? It's like to be honest, it's really difficult if you've just first started in recruitment, it's going to be a challenge. Like you have to build up your skills and all that kind of stuff. Was it to sort of kind of like create a realistic view rather than here is the dream where you're going to be going to Ibiza every year and you're going to be earning like all this cash? Like, was it just to be like, this is actually what it takes to be good at recruitment?
Yeah, it was a mixture of to sort of paint like the actual reality of working in recruitment. So that, and then also the other part was to share things that hopefully other recruiters could see that would make them feel like and understand that it's not just them going through it, basically.
Yeah, because you do feel crazy.
Yeah, because when I was in a small business, so there was only 8 of us, right? So honestly, like when I think back then, there was such limited content on recruitment. It was a joke. Honestly, when I basically did one of the classic things that recruiters always advise against, which was I quit my job before I had another job. So I saved up money and I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to get into recruitment. I'd rather just quit my job and then I'm just going to smash out the job hunt, right? And recruiters get a bit funny about that when they find that out from candidates. And I did that. And in that time, I just went hell for leather on like, right, what can I learn about recruitment? I read the Rich Recruiter book. I was looking at all of the content online and it was really limited, like really limited. It was just, I found out what a client is and what a candidate is, and that was about it, and what the earning potential is. So it sort of, I had all of those experiences, which sort of, I guess, motivated me to share things like that, because I really felt like there wasn't really much out there, and there wasn't at the time in 2017.
Yeah, well, I went into recruitment in 2012. I think 2011, 2012, I fell into recruitment. I think I went for a job for another sales role, and someone was like, "You'd be a really good recruiter. Join us." And honestly, there was nothing. I think that the training that we got and the extra stuff that you could have done, which was like 5-6 years before you got into recruitment, was here's a trainer, learn from the person next to you, and off you go, have some fun. Like when I started, I worked remotely from my company, so everyone was based in Sydney and I was in Melbourne. I was the only one in Melbourne, and I literally had no one to learn from. So I was like, it would have been great to have had the recruitment roller coaster back when I was starting in recruitment. Yeah. So I think that you're right. Like, I think there was not a lot, like, I mean, back in 2012, there was nothing. Like, I don't remember anything of 2011. So you actually coming out going, I need to create some content. And that's really cool. So when did you leave your recruitment role? So you set up the podcast after you created the blogs. You're like, it's easy. Like, let's just do the video and do the podcast. And then when did you leave the recruitment industry?
So I left recruitment in 2018 and to join HOXO, and because me and Sean ended up building a bit of a relationship. By that point I was sharing content myself for like the insurance market. It was helping me, it was working, really believed in it. And I even got Sean to come down to Hayward Heath and pitch my old boss, Matt. Didn't close the deal, but it was good to hear the Sean pitch and go through all that. So I just really believed in it. And then 2018 moved up to London to join HOXO and Sean and Amar's business.
That's amazing. So HOXO, they were doing something completely different. They were working within the recruitment field, but they weren't doing recruitment. They were. Right?
So basically, they weren't doing recruitment, but the problem they solved was helping recruitment businesses generate more inbound business through marketing and inbound marketing and all that great stuff.
So that was something that you were like, that's a really great idea. I'm going to join you guys.
Yeah, I just felt like, okay, well, that like if I can help more recruiters sort of go through what I've gone through, because I was sort of consistently sharing content and it really impacted my recruitment desk. It really helped with my business development. It helped me win business. So I really believed in it. So I just felt like I just really bought into like the problem that Sean and the guys were trying to solve, because I'd sort of experienced that, and none of my competitors when I was in recruitment were doing anything. So I just thought, well, there probably isn't many other recruiters doing this. So if I can help other recruiters go through that and achieve more inbound business and leverage marketing, then that sounds like a good idea. But basically, worst case scenario, I said to myself, because I took a pay cut and everything to go up there, I just thought, worst case, I'll just go back into recruitment. If I'm honest, that is still like my worst case. And like that gets me excited. I just think that's such a great question to ask. What is the worst thing that can happen? I will get a job. That's the worst thing that can happen.
It's like, I'll just get another job in recruitment. Like, off I go.
Yeah, that's
worst case scenario. So you took a pay cut and you decided to join Sean and Amir in a HOXO. And then you're still doing the recruitment roller coaster, because that's when I met you. Yes. I met you when you were working at HOXO. And I think it was in like 2019 to 2018. That's been 2019.
Yeah, they really supported me. They really supported my vision with the podcast. So they invested a lot into it. Time, got equipment. We had the studio there to do it and all of that. So they really support me with that. And then that became a really good business development tool for us, because we'd call recruitment business owners to come in, record the podcast, and normally we'd talk about marketing at some point. So yeah, they really supported that. And then during that period, I can't remember the exact year, it might be 2019 maybe, but and then Sean was like, I'd really like to have my own podcast, and then he started his as well.
That was that. Yes. Okay, cool. So that makes sense, because I was wondering how that works. So I know he set up his and then you had yours, and so you went off. So like, you then decided to go, do you know what, the recruitment roller coaster. At that stage when I got interviewed, you had been doing it for about a year and it was really flying. Like, you were doing super well with the recruitment roller coaster podcast. You were coming out with episodes every week, or if not every couple of weeks, something like that from memory.
Yeah, every week.
And you were just smashing it. Like, you were doing super well. You were working for HOXO, and then you decided, and I remember because we actually caught up in Tunbridge Wells where I live, and you were like, I'm going to start my own little thing. Like, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to do the recruitment roller coaster. And then you decided to do Azzouz branding, which was actually helping people build up their branding from like personal branding, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
That's what happened. So you did that for what? Like,
well, I'm still supporting clients now with that, but that's how I've been supporting myself over the last sort of 18 months to nearly 2 years.
All right. Okay. So let's get into that. Yeah, so let's get into the Azzouz branding. So you left HOXO and decided to actually let's help people build up their personal branding. So that's the Azzouz branding stuff. And so you've been doing that for the last 2 years, which you go into companies, you work individually with people. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I either work with recruiters on an individual basis or groups of recruiters to basically help them understand how to successfully build their brand online so they can help more people and win more business. That's what I've been doing. So I take them through a training coaching program. It's sort of with them rather than for them. I don't create any content. I just take them through a process that sort of has really worked for me and now quite a lot of recruiters as well. So that's what I've been doing over the last 2 years.
That's amazing. And then let's talk a little bit about the beginning of 2020, because you came up with this crazy idea. And I remember hearing about it and I was like, I don't know what Hishem is doing, but I kept on hearing about Recruitment Mentors. And I'm like, what is this? What is he doing? So what was the idea? How did you come up with it? And essentially, what is it and what are you doing right now?
So the idea, if I'm honest, the idea for some sort of community has always been sort of bubbling away because of the podcast. Because like it really, obviously I've been doing it for 3 years now. So like over that time, it's really built up a sort of loyal listener base. And I'd get sort of messages on a weekly basis from recruiters saying how much they've learned from it and these types of things. So like I always felt like there's a real appetite from a good chunk of recruiters that like want to learn and develop and are sort of are willing to take that into their own hands. So, but the real catalyst was back in 2019 when the podcast was partnered with Hunted at the time. And we basically delivered and hosted our first live podcast event in London. So 70 tickets, like 10 quid each. And that sold out in 2 days, which was amazing. And it was just, live podcast. And we did that. And that was awesome. And that was like the real catalyst because like the energy on the night was wicked. Like it was just a really, really good experience. And I was like, wow, there's definitely like a real appetite here for recruiters that want to learn and grow and develop. And the other part that's probably helped is that when I worked at HOXO, we attended multiple networking events that were always focused just on the agency owners, like the Recruitment Network, members only, stuff like that, Power Hive. So I always thought, like, why isn't there anything specific to the actual people that are doing the job day to day rather than just focused on the actual business leader? So that was the real catalyst. So I was like, there's definitely something here. Like, what does it look like? What does a community look like for a recruiter? Basically, like, how can we deliver that? How can we make that happen? So I then started to put a bit of a business plan together. And in that time, I also put a date down for the second live podcast event, which was in March 2020. Obviously, I had to cancel that. But again, what gave me motivation was that I sold that event out in a week, and there was this time 120 tickets, and this time there were 15 quid each, right? So like there was just a lot of signals. There's a lot of buying signals. There's a lot of like, this is it. Like I just didn't just have an idea. There was people partnering with cash to invest in their development and go to things like that. So I put together a business plan. Business plan version 1.0 was very, there was an online element, but it was definitely events driven. Obviously that quickly changed. And then the whole premise and sort of the vision for Recruitment Mentors is to build the place that can help recruitment consultants maximize their potential professionally, mentally, and sustainably. That's like the vision for this community. So how we do that is basically we give the members of this community access to mentors. So all of these mentors are recruitment professionals that have worked in the industry for minimum 5+ years. They're all people that have sort of showcased that they've progressed their recruitment career by going on that typical trajectory of like trainee all the way to like head of, director, senior, just trodden on that whole path that typically recruiters aspire to. And then the final part, and probably the main part, which is the USP piece, is like these are all people that are still actively on the tools today and are recruiting in today's market. So I think a lot of the time there's loads of amazing trainers out there, but I think sometimes the friction or the challenge when I've spoken to business owners and recruiters in the past is that they're learning and getting training from someone that did recruitment 5, 10, 15 years ago. And the landscape is changing so frequently. So the members in the community can learn directly from recruiters like that through our content. So we have bite-sized video sessions. That library grows every month. We've got a weekly live interactive session that people can attend. They're recorded so they can watch those back. And then we have our sort of dedicated community area where it's more like real-time mentoring, where people can sort of get advice, ideas in real time. And the whole purpose is that if you're part of this community, having access to some of sort of the most successful people outside of your four walls that you can learn directly from, hopefully that should mean that you have an even better chance of sort of going further and faster in your recruitment career. That's sort of what we're trying to do with that.
I freaking love it. I think that's really awesome. There's actually a question that's just come in from Thomas.
It's a Tom Woodhams. Wow.
It's Tom Woodhams.
The epic dancer on LinkedIn. Every single time you just cutting shapes on LinkedIn.
I know. He's just, do you know what? Fantastic dancer. Really appreciate it. But I swear
I used to work with Tom.
Do you? I swear he's going to become TikTok famous. That's my prediction.
Yeah,
I was actually
probably.
thinking about it this morning. I was like, he's just going to become TikTok famous. So his question was, what do you think the hardest challenge is overcoming on LinkedIn in general?
Knowing what to
So the
post.
marketing question. Yeah.
Knowing what to post. That's the number one idea for sure. Number one challenge. Definitely. Don't know what to post. That's the, I mean, how you can go on.
No, I was just going to ask, like, would you say that LinkedIn has dramatically changed in just the last 18 months as well?
In what sense?
Like on what you're posting, the posts that are actually getting the most engagement, like the algorithm changes, all that kind of jazz. Like I'm somebody that uses LinkedIn to market myself. That's how I built my business.
Yeah, same.
But honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing half the time. I'm like, I'm just gonna put up a post that I think is interesting and see how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I really don't like talking about algorithms and stuff because no one knows how they work. When I see people don't do that because it won't favor the algorithm, it's like you have no idea how the algorithm works. But I just go off what continues to work for me or what doesn't. I guess I would say the main difference in the last 18 months is definitely the video element. You can still get good engagement and reach with your videos. However, if I think back when me and Sean were just smashing out videos together, walking and talking, you would get thousands and thousands of views quite easily and quite quickly. But I'd say that's one of the main changes is you definitely don't get as much traction on the videos as you do now. But you can still. It depends what you're talking about. Is what
I think the videos
resonates with people.
So I noticed with my videos, I might not get as much engagement, but the quality of connections that I get is a lot better, and I'll actually more likely get better conversations. Still
impactful, but I would say that's the main thing. And then obviously you have things like this now, LinkedIn Live. That's obviously come in. You have different features like the polls that everyone loves to do. So I think it has changed a lot, but I think the most important thing, if you always really try and understand who you're trying to communicate to, who you need to be building relationships with, and you keep showing up and sort of talking about things that those people care about, then you should be doing okay. You should be maximizing this platform.
I agree. Thomas with another question. You see so many recruiters on LinkedIn in general. What do you think makes a successful recruiter? What is the biggest mistake you see recruiters do and why? That's a really good question.
Yeah. What? So I'm assuming is that just not marketing related, just as in what do you think makes a successful recruiter? What is the biggest mistake you see recruiters do and why? Just in general.
Yeah, I reckon that's what he means. Thomas, you can, if you just let us know, let's answer it that way.
I'll give that a go. What do you think makes a successful recruiter? Wow. I always ask people this at the beginning of the podcast. So I'm just going to share I'm just going to share what most people share, basically the common things that I hear. So let's just put aside work ethic, resilience, that's a given. You have to work hard. And you obviously have to work smart for sure, but you have to have a good work ethic, definitely. So I think the things that maybe you don't always typically hear about are great successful recruiters are self-aware. Great successful recruiters are great at self-managing and know what tasks they need to prioritize. And those tasks are typically the most difficult tasks, but they do them. Successful recruiters are really curious. Successful recruiters are really open-minded to learning, and they're the things that come up for me. I would say, on top of like the typical things. I think the biggest mistakes, I would say, is really one, like not having patience is a common thing. Not asking for help is a common thing that I hear. A lot of people say, if I say, what advice would you give yourself early on in your recruitment career? They would say, I would ask for more help because I was too proud and my ego got in the way to ask for help. So it would be that. And then I think the other piece is then like, well, two things: not thinking in the long term with a long-term mindset. Like, how is this gonna why is my future self gonna thank me for doing this? These types of things. And then the other thing is then really drilling down on like why you're doing what you're doing. So a lot of recruiters that I speak to will get to a point where like money isn't their driver. Early on in their career, it might have been, but when I see the target 500 grand billings in a year, that means absolutely fuck all to me. So I need to understand like why is it 500 grand? What does that mean for my life? How is that going to impact the people that I care about? Like, what does that actually mean for me? And why am I doing this? So they're the things that come up for me, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good answer. Some of the things that, like, I absolutely agree with everything that you said. And I think some of the biggest mistakes that recruiters do early on in their career, and this is just from my personal experience as well, and just meeting other recruiters. It's so weird. I was actually talking to one of my clients about this before, was that they work from a place of scarcity. They work from a place of fear. And when you work from that place, you actually don't make really good decisions. You actually are more likely to be very reactionary, and you actually don't think about long-term goals. And that's actually, you know, they're thinking of your target that's happening, you know, this month or in a quarter or whatever your targets are. And it actually, you come from that place, and that actually does create a different kind of energy, and it does become negative, and that's how you're going to get burnt out, and that the resilience piece kind of comes in as well. So it's, you know, one of the biggest things I actually say to recruiters is just like slow down and like understand, like ask really good questions. Sign up to the Recruitment Mentors. Like, I mean, hey, that's going to be a great thing for you to do, to be able to get
I think what has come up quite a lot recently, which is I think is interesting, is like it's just going that, and I've had to do this for myself, and it is hard sometimes, but like just going that step further with like your goal setting, because like if the only target that you're going for is 20 grand a month, like, and that, like, I don't know how excited is that going to get you. I don't know. But like that's what I hear a lot of people say is like, I don't understand. Like, I've written this target, but I don't understand why it's my target or why it's my goal. And that's hard. Like, you need to ask those questions.
Yeah, because the thing is as well, and Tom's just asked another question. I'll pop it up now. But while you read that, I'll just say the one thing is that when you become super outcome focused, you don't become process focused. You don't become, you just sort of looking at what's the quickest way to get to that goal. And that might not be the most sustainable, the most realistic, most like efficient way to do it. It actually is understanding like the very big process. You become too outcome focused. You need to be process focused, going, what can I do every single day that's going to help me reach that target, and then also and actually help me grow past that. So that's what I always say when people come.
And then I think the other bit on that is then making sure that you make time and space to review your goals. So like so that's had a real impact on me. Like, actually, so I've set myself a quarterly target, yearly target, monthly target. I need to see that target every single week for me to be checked in with that, because I think a lot of people will set that target and then they may not look at it for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever.
Yeah, it's making it tangible.
Find it hard to dial in. Yeah.
So to make your goals tangible, and this is something that I always talk to people about as well, is to make your goals tangible, they have to be within reach and they have to mean something to you this week and next week rather than in 6 months. So you need to be able to create something where you can actually go, what can I do today, this week, and this month that's going to help me get a little bit closer to my goal? Because if you have something, it's like the 5-year goal. I actually hate talking about 5-year goals because 5 years is too far away from us to really understand and grab onto it. But if you're in a recruitment role where it's like your target is 20K, it's actually going, well, what can I do every single day that's going to help me get there and actually exceed that as well, and really understand that process and focus on the process rather than the outcome, because that's going to make you a better recruiter. So let's get to Thomas's questions, because this guy has some questions today. I love it too. I tend to reteach the typical recruiter status, but I was compared to a ticket warden. Why do you think as recruiters this branding is on us due to bad experiences?
I would like to think that it's changing. I think it's going to take a lot of time. I don't know. I just think like whenever I discuss this with people, like where sometimes people go is like it's a real positive thing, but it can also be negatives where it's like it's such a low barrier to entry to the industry. Like anyone can end up in the industry, which is an amazing thing, but also means sometimes you can have a lot of people that just maybe could do a lot of damage, right? I was listening to a podcast yesterday actually with a guy called Chris Voss, who's got that really great book called Split the Difference. It's all about negotiating. And he was saying good negotiation is all about collaborating. And what he said there is like, if you basically do someone over and you do them dirty and you just deliver a shit experience, you cut corners, you make them feel horrible, like people will tell like up to 12 people about that. Whereas if you do a really good job, they'll tell up to 3 people. So I think that's also a big thing because like I think how many people actively tell their peers around like great recruiter experiences. I do feel like that's sort of growing, but I think there's just way more people saying recruiters are shit because of the bad experience they've had. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just going to be really hard to change. But I just think loads of bad experiences, and it only takes one for that people to then tell all their mates that recruiters are annoying and they're shit. But I think also, I don't know. I think sometimes clients don't make it easy as well, and like recruiters can get all the blame for like difficult clients and stuff like that. But yeah, I think a mixture of things. But I do really feel like, especially the last year, would have weeded out a lot of people that are transactional and just care about the money. Because if you're super transactional in the last during COVID and stuff, that
you're not going to have won much. The other thing is as well, I'm going to add in just a little bit of the culture part in here, which I've seen is that because it is incredibly, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of targets that you've got to hit. And if you don't have, and a lot of the times people don't have the skill set to be able to achieve those targets and actually go with it.
Good point.
But they actually don't know how to be a good recruiter, and it does feel like it is transactional. And if you are working in an industry, if you're working in a company that your manager's just going, hit your KPIs, you've got to do 100 calls, you've got to do this. You're not going to be, you're thinking about the number that you've got to achieve, not the conversation that you're in. And this is why I'm saying being outcome focused is not always the way. You have to be process focused to be able to go, I'm speaking to a human being. Let's have a good conversation with a human being. How would I like to be spoken to if I'm a human being? And just going from that point.
Again, I do feel like that's changing as well. So I think it's changing. Hopefully in another year's time, we're moving the needle on that. And that's definitely a big sort of passion of ours at Recruitment Mentors. Like we really do want to change the perception of the industry. Like we'd love to be able to achieve that, but I don't think you'll ever be able to achieve it. It'll be like an infinite goal to have to really change the perception.
Yeah, but it comes back to like, you know, for instance, recruiters kind of get classed in the same category as, oh, you're just like a used car salesman, which is like a horrible thing to say, which is like, you're just trying to like make money. And at the end of the day, it's like, it's kind of hard. You chuck a 22-year-old kid into a recruitment industry, go, hey, hit 20K this month. That's your target. And if you don't hit that, it's going to roll over into the next month before you hit commissions. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to work from a place of scarcity. They're going to be completely reactionary, and they don't have the tools to do it. So this is why people need to join Recruitment Mentors. Like sincerely, like they don't have the skill set to being able to build up that skill set. And here's the other thing. Managers have to get built up as well to actually understand, hang on a second. If I put, like, you know, people are already under pressure in recruitment. If you keep putting more pressure on, that person isn't going to perform better. Like that's just a given. People don't perform better when you give them too much pressure. They end up becoming, their emotions kind of can hijack them, and it's just not a great place for them to be. But actually being able to understand what's an appropriate amount of pressure to actually motivate, but not discourage. So that was just my little take on that as well. And so Thomas has got 2 more questions. He promised that the last one was the last one, so we'll go with it. Okay. So obviously you know me, and you see, and seeing you on both sides of the fence. Yeah. Why do you want to help recruiters?
It's something I'm always thinking about, to be fair. I think there's 2 main things that it's drawing on. One, my own experience, because I had to really go out of my way to like improve when I was in recruitment, like really out of my way. Like I would attend events on my own. I was actively looking for content. I ended up creating content. So like I can really draw on like I was that person that like had the mindset to develop and wanted to grow, but like I'd had to do a lot of work to try and find things that could help me. So that's definitely part of it. I want to remove that. And then two, it's just, I feel like it's just become a bit of an almost sort of like duty, if I'm honest, because of the podcast and the amount of people that sort of message me and listen to it. I just really feel, I don't know, I just really feel like, why should that person's learning and development stop after they've listened to the podcast? Like, what more can we do to help those people? So it's just come from that, really. Like, I have all these people that are actively giving me sort of hours of their time each week. So I just feel like I don't want to take that for granted, and like just coming from a place of like, what more can I do to help these people hopefully form a really successful career and a happy one.
And I'm just going to say, Thomas, you're taking my questions for me and just giving them out. So I appreciate you. So that was going to be one of my questions coming up, but I appreciate you asking that question because that is really important. So, so he's promised this is the last question.
I like this one.
Question coming up. Mental health is a massive part of my life and for so many people. How do you both overcome any mental challenges? If you did have any, what was the biggest challenge for you? You go first.
Yeah, cool. So I'll go first with like what's helped, and then I'll talk about the challenge. So I had a bit of a pivotal moment in my life, to be fair. It's 2015. At that point, what I cared about were girls, going out, getting drunk. That's what I cared about. Wasn't too focused on my career. And I don't have a huge friendship group, probably about 8 of us. And two of my close friends just started to sort of drift off that I was like close with. You know, you have like people that you're closer with within the group. There were 2 people that I was close with, and they just started not coming around our friends when we'd arranged to go around there, have a couple of drinks, watch shit TV, and like they just started saying no a lot more. And I was really curious about that. I was like, why are they not coming around? Like, why are they not coming around? Anyway, long story short, was I ended up just getting really curious and sort of just finding out why they did start saying no. And the sort of epiphany that I had and what I realized why they were saying no was because they were choosing to spend that time on their own development. So by that point, I had never even heard of self-development or like anything like that. But it really sounds really simple, right? But the epiphany that I had was like, the best investment I can make is in myself. But before that, I was very wrapped up in other things. It was, going out, other people's opinions, like all that shit, basically, that we all go through. So from like going into like 2015, I then got into reading, got into personal development. The first book that I read was Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. Then I got into Think and Grow Rich. Then I was absolutely obsessed with like, how can I become a better human being, basically? And what that meant was I cultivated self-awareness. That's for me is the key to this. Is like I've got good at understanding like what Hishem needs to do on a daily or weekly basis that will hopefully mean that I'm a happier person, or I can perform more consistently and these types of things. So for me, it really is self-awareness, and that's like I've journaled for the last like 3-4 years. That's massively helped. I'm willing to look at myself in the mirror and ask difficult questions. Like I'm happy to take criticism. Like, these are all things that I've cultivated over time, but I'm really open to like, how can I become a better human, basically? The thing that I find most hard is basically is guilt, especially when you have your own business. So like I know that I need to relax. I know that I need to check out or have time off, but I will be watching. Like I'm watching Billions at the moment, which is sick, and I'm really enjoying it. Every time I watch it, there's just this little voice in my head going, "You should be working. There's things that you could be doing." So it's just that for me, and that's something that I think I'm always going to have to work through. I do feel like I've got better at it. So things like making sure I've put I can't see my phone when I'm watching stuff like that. Like just allowing myself not to feel guilty about sitting there watching Netflix and doing all that, basically. That's me being really honest.
I love that. That's really, really cool. Obviously, like, you know, I talk about burnout, so actually giving yourself the space to zone out is also really important. That's where you get your good ideas. You actually had a post about that today, about the good ideas always come when you're relaxed, pretty much. So mental health is, I love this question, Tommy. Like, I know that you are really passionate about mental health. So for me, like, I'll just do this really quickly. So when I'm coming over mental challenges, again, it's exactly what Hishem said. It's becoming really, really self-aware. So for me, like my own journey, if you've ever listened to any of my podcasts or any of the podcasts I've either been interviewed on or even the podcasts that I've personally done, I've had a history of mental health challenges. When I was a teenager, I had an eating disorder. When I was in recruitment, I burnt out twice. And they were pretty big wake-up calls for me to go, hang on a second, like what do I need to be doing? The self-awareness piece, which a lot of people can also call mindfulness, is actually massive. Being able to take a step back going, hang on a second, like where am I at? What's going on? So one of the biggest challenges that I ever had was understanding when I was actually stressed. Like I never knew when I was stressed. Like I had no idea. So what would happen to me was that my body would let me know when I was stressed out, right? So my body would be like, here, have a cold sore, here, get sick, here, like don't sleep and things like that. And so that's how I burnt out twice. So understanding, hang on a second, what does stress feel like for me? Where does it come from and what can I do? That was really important. So self-awareness again. So I give myself every morning, I give myself some time to check in with myself. How am I physically doing? Where are my emotions at? How am I mentally going? What can I actually give to the day? But without burning out, because it's understanding your limitations rather than, everyone's like, push past your limits. That's what motivation or Martins are all saying. But if you're keep pushing past your limits, you're going to burn out. So actually understanding what can I actually give today? You might not be able to give 100% today, but that's okay. You might be able to give like 50%. That's going to be where you're at. That would be my only advice.
Just quick one on that is I would say, one of the books that had the biggest impact on me was Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle.
Mm-hmm. That's a good book.
And I think sort of in line with self-awareness, what always helps me is perspective. Mm-hmm. And I know it's easy to say that, but like actual perspective, like checking in with yourself and going, why am I getting really down about this? Could it be worse? Like, is this the worst case? Like, do you know what I mean? And like, just having that perspective and like cultivating that. But yeah, Power of Now and like getting really good at, I mean, again, a real sort of epiphany moment really, where it's like, oh my God, like the only thing that I actually have is now and the present moment. And me thinking about the past or the future is like, why am I doing that? Or especially if you're putting a lot of weight onto the past or the future. Yeah. All I actually have is in it now, this moment. And that's a big wake up moment.
That's a big one. So stress management comes into that, right? So you've got to be able to manage your own stress. You've got to understand here's the thing, our emotions will hijack us and they'll make us we'll become very reactionary rather than being proactive. So you're talking a lot about proactive stuff, but some people who are feeling very stressed out find it really difficult to be proactive. So being able to have that moment of just going like, hey, let me relax. Let's actually I'm really stressed out and get perspective on just your stress. Like actually kind of understand what's going on, what's giving me the biggest stresses, and understanding how you can remove stress, because it is really, really, really hard if you're really stressed out. You go into blinker mode. You're just going to be able to focus on the moment. That issue, you're not looking at the big picture. So being able to manage your stress is hugely important. So so I that would be my thing. All right, so Tom's got one more question.
I'll let you go into that. I think that is a really interesting one.
All right, so I haven't read it yet, so let me read it out. So do you think people use mental health sometimes as an excuse? I've been able to help so many people outside of work and it's helped me so much. Do you think people say, oh, I'm sad, then automatically jump on the mental health wagon? That's a really, really good question, and it's a challenging one to answer because I think that we've spoken so much about mental health, and I think there is a perception of people going, oh, like you're just blaming your mental health on everything. And I don't think that that's really fair to say. We all have mental health, right? We all have mental health. Sometimes our mental health is going to be really, really good, and sometimes our mental health is going to be pretty crap, and it can go between day to day, week to week. So being able to just say, oh, just chuck everything into the mental health wagon, I don't think that's really fair to say. But that is a quite hard one. But if you're using mental health as an excuse, that's a different conversation. It's understanding what's actually going on with that person. Like what's happening with them. They're obviously feeling stressed out. They're obviously feeling anxious. There's obviously something else going on. They're not feeling comfortable in something if that's the perception. So they're clearly still having a mental health issue. Right? Like you couldn't say that. But I think it would be dangerous. It'd be very dangerous and inappropriate to say that, people going, oh, I'm sad today. or you're just using your mental health as an issue. It's actually,
I think
just having a bad day.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think using mental health as like a cop out, I think that's dangerous place to go down, isn't it? I think, like you said, dangerous. I think the better way to actually think about mental health is that we all have it. It's not like, oh, I only talk about mental health when it's bad. It's, well, no, we have it all the time, right? So I think that's when it gets dangerous, isn't it? When you're trying to add a label to mental health, which is, it's bad. It's bad.
It's a scale, right? You can't sit there and go, oh, like, I'm feeling sad today, so therefore I must have bad mental health. It's like that's inappropriate to say as well. Like, there's a scale, right? You're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, and sometimes it can get really extreme and you're going to need some extra help, and that's completely okay. There's no dramas with that. No stigma should be attached to that either. So I think that, I think it's just unfair and inappropriate to say, just chuck it in the bag.
Well, literally, this is like, obviously everyone talks, but like literally the perfect comparison is physical health, isn't it? Like, it literally is the perfect comparison, because sometimes we can find ourselves looking in the mirror and going, how the fuck have I got this fat? And then likewise the other way or whatever, like, you go through peaks and troughs. Do you know what I mean? Your weight goes through peaks and troughs. So like, I just think that's like and that's why mental health should be something we all have it, and it's a continuous thing, rather than I'm sad and I have mental health and trying to add a sort of like label to mental health is when we talk about it is only when it's bad. Yeah,
I think that, it's exactly like what you were saying. But also, if we even just take into the physical health element, you don't feel great every day. Like, there are days when you go to the gym and you're like, dude, I'm not feeling this. I do not want to fucking be here. Like, this is the worst thing that I want to be doing right now. But you go through it and you manage it, and there are ways to go through it. And it's like, for instance, like, you're not always going to have a good night's sleep. You're not always going to have that as a thing. No. That's like how, like, it's peaks and troughs, right? And obviously there's different severities, and that's different, right? For instance, you're not going to go to the hospital if you're just feeling a bit tired, but you might go to the hospital if you've broken your leg. It's the same thing with mental health, right? You can't just pop it into one category. So I love that answer. So, but I love that Tommy's asked heaps of questions, but I do want to get a little bit more information about recruitment mentors. So I actually think that what you're doing with the recruitment mentors is actually really, 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 really important, because I remember when I was a recruiter, we either had to learn from the people in our office, and like I said, I was more often than not, I was based outside of the office, the people that I worked with. So I was literally 20 something, I don't know how old I was, like 23 years old, in an office by myself trying to do recruitment. And if I had access to like recruitment mentors, it probably would have made me feel a little bit better, because I actually, pardon the phrase, but it was like throwing shit at a wall and seeing what stuck at the time. And that was really challenging. Like, most people do that anyway in recruitment. So actually having those tools is really important. I think what you're giving is really, really valuable to a lot of recruiters.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I've sort of gone through what we're trying to do. I get just the final thing really is, I mean, right now, if you go on recruitmentmentors.com, you can sign yourself up. It's £39 per month. You can cancel at any time. We want to have people and keep people that, there because, they see the value in it, and that's showing up and using it, rather than being signed up to like a 12-month agreement or whatever. So, that's how you can get involved at the moment. In the sort of background, we're partnering with 10 founding agencies. So in June, we're launching our agency access membership, because I think not every recruiter is going to have the money to invest in their own development, which is fair. So we're going to be able to support agencies with their learning and development offerings for their people, because like you said, typically the businesses that we're speaking to and can help, their learning development looks like it's very reliant on people's time. It's reliant on sort of the billing managers and senior people to help the people around them. So that means that they're taking time away from what they need to be doing. It's normally like really sporadic. They might have had external training at some point, but may not have had one for 6 months. And also, like, some of the sort of teachings and how people do things internally could be outdated. It could be that it may not be as current as it could be, right? So we're that's going to be the sort of next part for us, and where we're going to be really focusing and growing is like partnering with agencies that want to invest in their people and enable their people to have another sort of on-demand learning and development opportunity for the people that do want it, in hope that, we can help agencies increase the performance of their people and help them keep their best people as well.
Yeah. Because that's really important, right? A lot of people, if you think that why they leave, it might be because they're not getting the support that they need. Another thing that I would just add into that for agency owners is that you can actually train your staff, and obviously you can go through that, but sometimes actually having an external resource to back up what you're saying can be hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
Because,
and I think, I was just going to say, sorry, basically, there's just two main USPs really. It's just one, the people you're learning from. They're most obviously, I know that you've joined recently. That's the mindset piece, and I think that's really important. But like 90% of people in there are all people that are still doing recruitment today, and like they're sharing what's worked for them, like now, not 5, 10, 15 years ago. But then the second thing is that the content that we get put onto this platform is really driven by the members. So those sort of the challenges, the day-to-day challenges, and what's important and where people want to learn and develop changes. So 3 months ago, everyone wanted to sort of really sharpen up their client development skills and all of that. But right now, it seems like a lot of people want to get better at making sure that they're sourcing as good as they can and get candidates. People want to know how they can start their diversity journey, because more and more of their customers are requiring diverse shortlists. People don't know how to do that. People want to. People are now really busy, so people want to get good at self-management and understand what they need to prioritize. So hopefully, this community platform can not only consist of like good content that can help people, but current content, and that's always going to be evolving. So hopefully, we can achieve that as well.
No, I think that's really great, and something that you've brought up a couple of times, which I just want to hone in on before we finish up, which is the people that are training you do have that 15 years that haven't, they're training you from what 15 years ago, which is a huge issue that's actually probably in the recruitment industry right now, is that it's outdated. The information that we've got about how to be a good recruiter, very, very different. Like even from when I was a recruiter 10 years ago, it's very different to how you would be a recruiter today. So I think that relevance and bringing it to the actual, like the here and the now, like bringing to the present, and it is super, super important. And the way that the recruitment industry has evolved, even in just the last 5 years, is really dramatic.
Well, in the last
12 months.
14, 16 months, a lot of people had to make changes, pivot and stuff. So
you did a massive pivot, my friend. That's what I always think is really interesting. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on. We're kind of coming to the end of the hour, so I really, really appreciate it. Before we jump off, tell everyone where they can find you, find Recruitment Mentors. Where can they find you all?
Cool. So, few plugs. So, best place, LinkedIn for sure. That's like where I spend time. So, Hishem Azzouz, obviously. Yeah, recruitmentmentors.com. That's where you can see everything about the community. And if you want to join that, if you don't want to sort of part with any cash or anything like that, then I'd really recommend you sign up to our newsletter, which is called Limitless Learning. So every other Wednesday, we will email sort of practical tips, advice for recruiters directly into their inbox. The last sort of 2 editions have been things like 5 ways that you can get that first client meeting, to how to stay front of mind of the passive candidates. So I'd recommend doing that. You can sign up to that on our website. And then something that we are going to be doing actually is the sort of final part of our, I guess, like marketing for people that may not be part of the platform, but we want to be sort of helping and supporting, is then we're going to be launching our sort of recruitment growth events. They'll obviously start online. And we've got the first one in 2 weeks, which is on imposter syndrome. So yeah, there's a few things. And then of course listen to the podcast if you haven't. So there's plenty of free stuff that you'll really benefit from if you're not in a position or willing to join the community just yet.
Yeah, and one quick question: if there's companies listening to this, they're like, "Oh, I really want to get onto the Recruitment Mentors for my team," when will you be opening that up a bit more? Because you've got 10 companies right now. When will you be able to expand it?
So this month's all about getting feedback and making any sort of key changes that can really have a positive impact. But I'll be having conversations with people sort of back end of May, and we're going to be opening up agencies being able to join and sign up their teams from June. So yeah, at any point, there's not like a specific thing, but reach out to me and I can talk to you about what that would involve and what the investment is.
Amazing. And one last question. What
Yes.
is one tip that you would give anybody to get their shit together, either literally or figuratively?
So my tip would be to make sure every single week you make time and space to review your week. So I've done it now for the last 6-7 months. It's had a huge impact on my focus, productivity, understanding where I'm at, where I'm going. So I do it on Sunday personally. It's like an hour. So every Sunday for an hour, I will ask myself, what went well this week? What didn't go well this week? What do I need to focus on next week? Have a look at my quarterly goals, have a look at my yearly goals, and then go into the week feeling good about what I need to prioritize and focus on. So yeah, I'm not thinking about what the hell I need to be doing, but that's really had an impact on me. That would be my tip.
I freaking love that tip. It's actually one of my favorite tips that I've heard. No shade to anyone else, but
say that to everyone.
No, I don't. No, I'm literally no shade to anyone else that's been on the podcast and the live, but that was a good one. I appreciate that one. That's a tip that I give to a lot of people, so I appreciate that. So thank you so much for coming on. I super appreciate it. And everyone, go check out Hishem. He's doing some really cool stuff in the world. That's what I'm going to leave people with. All right, see you later.
Awesome. See you later.